adjustments along the way. And I know many of you here in Utah are not only have, are, and will continue to deal with water issues. I cannot think of a more single important issue to Native people and people everywhere, particularly in the West. Empowerment. We learned earlier that it can just be a word. But for me, I kind of like the idea that it makes constituents feel like they're about to become more in control of their destinies. And with water and water rights, there's nothing greater than that, to control your destiny. You have to have your resource. You have to control it in order to control your destiny. It's so vitally important. And the reason is this. The water is already divided by the players who are already empowered at the table. It's been ongoing for decades. I love this shot. For me, this represents so much of what I do. Now, don't be offended, and I know it's been a long time since I've been asked to speak at luncheon because I don't want anybody to, I want everything to digest properly. But I am not calling anybody a dog by having this picture up, okay? It doesn't have to do with anything, but what it has to do with, the stakes are high. And the players are at the table, and they're bluffing, and they're negotiating. They all have a comfortable uncomfortableness about their situation. And they don't want to give up what they have to new players. And new players can be rural communities, new players can be tribes. So sometimes they're small and seemingly powerless players, but that's not the case. The one thing about Federal Reserve rights is that it ensures tribes a place at that table. Unlike poor rural communities who are not always at the table, may not have a voice. But you have to be at the table and you have to litigate if necessary. Litigation is an unfortunate reality of having to get people to the table, hopefully to negotiate. Part of the process, you have to learn to develop partnerships and make your voice heard. And I like this little dog only because I have felt that way, sometimes representing smaller rural communities at the negotiation table, and I don't have the resources, my community doesn't have the resources, the hydrology may not be there, but I have passion. And sometimes I feel like all that you can do is just shake, with your eyes bugging out. Because your goal, like everybody else, is to obtain and maintain and usable supply of water. You've heard the term, whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over. I know you're from Utah, so maybe you don't put that into practice, but you know, it's so true. We fight over water. Why? Because it's so precious. And I don't have to tell you how precious water is, that it means life and power as well. Not necessarily in that order, not necessarily in that degree, but life, power, and wealth. In 1908, the Winter's Doctrine was established, and that basically entitled tribes to a water right to meet and fulfill the purpose of the reservation. But it went unquantified for many years. And then 1964 in Arizona versus California, those rights began to be quantified for the first time for 5 tribes along the Colorado River in Arizona. It really disturbed a lot of players at that table. The reason being is because it was an entitled right, it was unquantified, it became quantified, and it was significant. And water, remember, is already being used. So of the 566 federally recognized tribes, less than 30 have settled their water rights, 9 in Arizona, my hope still is that we will have a settlement for the Navajo and Hopi in Arizona as well. You know, when I was a young attorney, I envisioned myself as a lawyer. I kind of like this picture because whether you go into settling or whether you're litigating water rights, you have to have a bit of a passion to do it because you know what you're fighting for. In Arizona, we have 2 cases. There are cases everywhere throughout the West, but there are 2 main ones that were involved with the Navajo and the Hopi dispute. And that was a Little Colorado River adjudication. And the other one was a lawsuit filed by the Navajo Nation against the United States Department of Interior regarding water rights on the Colorado River. Litigation was necessary to bring the parties together at the table. And the key parties, of course, were the Navajo Nation, the Hopi Tribe, the state of Arizona, major power companies like the Soul River Project and the Arizona Public Service Company, and various cities and communities, one of which I represented, which is the city of Flagstaff, the largest in northern Arizona, which, by the way, all my comments are of my own today, not my client. But that litigation, there are some parts of the adjudication that are continuing while we negotiate this water settlement, but the Navajo versus DOI case was stayed. That case, of course, also involved California and Nevada and entitlements on the lower basin of the Colorado River. So as a result, you can imagine the various parties who were sitting at this table, most of them who had already divided the waters. The settlement really is not for the faint-hearted. I have learned so many lessons in dealing with water settlements over the last couple of decades. You really have to understand your litigation risks, and you have to know the hydrology. Because the players at the table know it very well. And they're measuring up your participation, your seat at the table, your entitlement, your allocation. They are weighing all of it regarding litigation risk and hydrology, both of those things. If you don't have a lot of litigation risk and your water rights do not seemingly have any kind of hydrologic impact, you're less motivated to do anything, okay?